Welcome back, friends and fans. I have a real gem for you today. I picked up this broken Cranberry Red Breville Infuser, and although my plan with this video was to show you a typical repair, you are going to love the twist in this story. So stick around while I repair this beautiful Breville Infuser. Yeah, this infuser is in really good condition. Normally, you see some scratching on this drip tray, but this is just perfect. And in the infuser, you also get this little area to store baskets and tools and stuff, which is very well designed. It comes out right away as soon as you pull out the drip tray. So very cool design, very practical, and a good place to store stuff, especially for those of us who have full kitchen drawers. So a little bit about the infuser. It's a very capable machine. It's exactly the same as a Barista Pro, but without the grinder. It's kind of in the same category as the Bambino Plus, but it's significantly better in a lot of ways. You've got much more variability for doing things with your coffee, and you've also got a hot water outlet, which is very useful. A lot of people think that somehow this machine is not available anymore, but that's not true. You can see it here for sale, and it's actually more expensive than the Barista Pro. And I absolutely panned the Barista Pro in my last video, and I think most people agree that the infuser is just a better machine to have. And it looks like this little piece may have broken off in the shipping or something. I'm not going to worry about it. I don't think you'll be able to see it unless you're looking. You're probably wondering why I didn't just start the machine and test it right away. And the reason is I just want to make sure that nothing's going to leak or do anything catastrophic when I first try it. So I like to have the machine open. But now it's time to test. And the seller description was simply the steam wand is not working. But have a listen to this. And as soon as you hear a buzzing like that, you know something is probably wrong with the solenoid. So let's just let the machine heat up and then run it through its paces. So we start out with the softer pre-infusion. And then we go to full power. And that's all looking pretty good. So let's test the hot water. Again, that looks perfect. So let's check out the steam. And what we're listening for when we flick over to steam is, first of all, a waiting period so that the boiler can heat up to full temp. And then we'll want the pump to kick in, doing a little tick, tick, tick. And then we want to see a little bit of water coming out for the purge. And then we want to see a nice, good amount of steam coming out. So, I hate to be the guy that says, hey, look, I got this awesome machine for really cheap on eBay, and it works perfectly, even though the seller said it was broken. But as far as I can tell, that's what is happening. So, hey, score one for the big guy. And boy, I would love to just be the guy that says, okay, done, listed on Facebook. But I got to do my due diligence, so I got to look around, make sure there's nothing leaking inside the machine. And the first thing you do when you're looking for that is make sure there's no water or drops or any kind of scale, like white powdery stuff. And so that's what I'm looking for right now. And then we're going to keep our eye on it, but this time we're going to run a shot. Aha, we got that buzzing again. So I'm just trying to figure out which of these two solenoids it is. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this yourself because, first of all, I couldn't tell any difference between which one was vibrating. And second of all, the connections at the back of those solenoids are carrying the same voltage as your wall power. So it's probably better not to be touching around in there. And now I've got gloves on just to make sure nothing bad happens. And I'm going to disconnect this solenoid first and then run a shot. And as you can see, the buzz is gone. So I know for sure that this solenoid is the problem. But I will just reconnect it and then make sure. So now the buzz should come back again. And there it is. So it's time to commence with the full teardown so that I can get into those solenoids. Pulling the back off of this machine is always a little bit tricky, especially when you get to that kind of gut-wrenching part where you just have to pull the back off away from the clips. And if you really want to do any kind of serious work, you need to take this water tank inlet off. It's a real pain to put it back on. I'm warning you. If you're dealing with these little clips, I can't tell you how great it is to use a hemostat because it will grip the clip even while you pull it out. So you won't lose these little clips, and they're very hard to find. So at this point, knowing what I knew then, I'm going to try to just get that one offending solenoid out of the machine. And in order to do that, I kind of have to remove basically this whole assembly here to get at the screws at the bottom of the solenoid. And so you're going to be removing several clips and several of these tubes. And just make sure that you pay attention to the O-rings that are on the end of each tube and the clips themselves. There's two different sizes. I believe this one that I'm removing now is a larger size clip, although I can't remember exactly which one is larger. There's definitely two different size clips. So make sure you're paying attention to the O-rings and the clips. So at this point, I can reach the bottom of the solenoid here to unscrew it. Now, if you are replacing this part, I'm going to suggest that you just bypass a lot of what you see next. This is me on discovery mode, and actually, really, you're just going to be buying that whole assembly because it's only about $15 more than a single solenoid. So it makes sense to just replace the whole thing. I have to this point never actually repaired a buzzing solenoid, but I'm in discovery mode here, and mad scientist that I am, I decide to check to see if I can make the solenoid buzz outside of the machine. And the wise thing to do here would have been to research the correct wiring of solenoids, which I didn't do, so I'm kind of randomly putting this 110 volts into the different terminals. And, well, so having likely destroyed that solenoid anyway, I'm going to proceed to try to clean it and see if I can't fix it. Now, it turns out that this is an older version of the solenoid, which has a brass base. If you have the newer version of the solenoid, you might want to consider just replacing the single solenoid. But I would advise you just do the whole assembly. And I could not separate these two parts, so I went on a side quest. So let's listen to these two solenoids. Now that solenoid on the left is from a DeLonghi teardown that I did. So I kind of want to see maybe I can just pull the core out and compare the two cores, and if they're the same, I could just swap the core out. But as you can see, these aren't the same. But looking at the core, I noticed that there's definitely some scale on here, so maybe a cleaning might work. We'll see. So after a long soak in descaler, you can see that the coil spring has really loosened up. So I'm a little bit hopeful here. So it's time to reassemble and then do the buzz test again, and let's see what happens. It may be difficult to hear, but it's still buzzing, and it's buzzing just the same as before the clean. But since I'm not really a solenoid expert, I decide to pull the coil from the good solenoid and see if that makes a difference. So let's put the thing back together and have a little listen. And you may not be able to tell, but it sounds pretty much exactly the same. So it's still buzzing. So it's pretty much at this point that I do my shopping, discover that the assembly is only about $15 more than just the solenoid. So I go ahead and order the assembly. And then I decide that while I'm waiting for it to come, I'm going to put everything back together. And since the machine had so much scale in it, I'm going to run a full descale on it. And while I'm checking on it, I might as well just make sure that the thermals all look good and that there's no obvious leaking or anything like that. All right, I'm back here with the Breville Infuser. I have received the new solenoid assembly here. So we're going to be taking a look at that and installing it. And hopefully that solves the issue. Let's see how we do. So the solenoid assembly looks a little different than the one I'm pulling out because it's mostly plastic on the bottom. Now, using plastic is obviously cheaper than using brass. Whether there are any benefits, I really don't know. And one of the things I didn't show you was me putting this piece back on, and that's because it's torture. I promise I will show you the next time. Removing the entire assembly is more straightforward than removing just the solenoid. There are a few clips and a few hoses that you got to get out, and you got to pull the wires off the back. And then once you unscrew it, all that's left is a little zip tie that you got to cut. And here they are, side by side, the old assembly and the new assembly. You can see that they're pretty similar. All right, so while I'm putting this assembly back into the machine, I'm going to tell you a little story. If you haven't seen my last video, you should definitely check it out. It was a little bit of a detective story about the infuser's big brother, the Breville Barista. And in it, I definitely panned the Barista because it has a built-in grinder. And I think the Breville Barista is an inferior machine. As far as I can tell, Breville agrees with me because you can pick up the Barista for less than the infuser right now. So as I'm repairing this infuser, I actually have the Breville Barista listed for sale, the one that I repaired there. And I initially thought that because it's in Cranberry Red, which is a discontinued color, that I'd probably get $450 for it. But I listed it a while ago and I reduced the price maybe about a week ago down to about $400, try to get somebody to buy the thing. And as I'm repairing this infuser, I do actually find a buyer who's going to come pick the machine up today. All right, so the stage is set, and back to the repair here. I'm letting all of this footage go to show you that actually one of the hardest parts of this entire repair is getting this water tank inlet connector back into the bottom of the back of this machine. I can't tell you what a struggle it is to try to get this thing in. The seal keeps falling out. The screws won't go in, or they go in sideways, or they just won't connect. It is by far and away the hardest part of this entire repair. Anyway, I finally managed to get the thing seated and screwed in, so it's time to do a test. And what I'm looking for is perfectly normal functionality. So we want it to brew. Check. And I want to test the hot water. Check. And finally the steam. And steam looks great. I always like to shut the steam off. In fact, if you're making steam for yourself, you should kind of let the steam go, turn it off, and then turn it on again, because it's going to make much better steam the second time. Nice. Great machine. And then finally, we'll just run it through a pressure test, which it passes with flying colors, so that's all looking good. And while it's under pressure with that same blind disc, I'm just going to make sure that there's no sign of leaking at all. So all that's left to do is to put this machine back together, make it look spick and span, so that tomorrow morning I can put it up in my beautiful kitchen and then shoot the money shot, so that I can list it on Facebook. But these two machines look so pretty together, I couldn't resist just putting them on the table for a little bit of a photo shoot. And I thought, hey, I'll leave them this way while the guy from Facebook comes and picks up his barista. All right, welcome back. I'm here with Joshua, who's picking up his Breville Barista. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about it. Okay. And see what you think of those machines. So first of all, I want to know why the Breville Barista?
So my mom actually had the same coffee machine, so I know how to use it. I've been looking for one that's easy for me to use, but also for my wife. She really likes the red color. She has like a red sort of theme going in our house, and it also had some key upgrades that I know are pretty pricey. Like the bottomless portafilter, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So I kind of tune it to how I want it to pull.
Yeah.
And then additionally, the fact that it's been professionally serviced and there's a new grinder in there is really cool to me, because the built-in grinder really makes it easy for me.
Put it. I didn't put it. Please put it. You can. Click tamper.
Yeah.
I use that one. Yeah.
Gotcha. Nice.
That's not the one that comes 3 pounds of pressure there. Good. Yes.
That's really good.
Is it good?
Yeah, it is. That's delicious. Yeah, delicious actually. It's hot though.
Is it too hot?
Yeah, I like to. That's a little bit, but it's a pretty shot actually.
Yeah, you could go a little. All right, so we made a shot. We're standing here with the infuser, and we've got the barista. So I was just explaining to Joshua the difference. This guy is they're exactly the same, except for the grinder. So knowing that, what do you think? Knowing that they're pretty much identical.
Like, what I think the cost difference is?
Yeah, do you prefer still having the grinder in there?
Honestly, I would prefer I already have a grinder.
Interesting.
I was gonna just sell the grinder because I didn't think this was an option, but I would prefer this one.
It's a great twist to the story, because maybe you would rather just buy that one.
I mean, depending on the cost differential, yeah, I might prefer that one.
Okay. Well, so generally I would price them about the same. Like, I would expect that one to sell for like $350.
Sure.
Just because I know that actually is a better machine.
Is it?
Well, because it doesn't have that grinder is not just, in the coffee world.
It's not top tier.
Well, it doesn't get a lot of love, that grinder.
Sure.
Yeah. Uncle, do you understand?
I used to watch a lot of James Hoffman almost as like a background noise, like when I was cleaning or whatever. And I really liked it. It taught me a lot about coffee. It's been a little while, but I do remember him saying that even though this is a really nice machine for a lot of people to start out, and it gets kind of too much hate from what he said, it's definitely not the best grinder you can buy for making the best quality espresso. And it kind of can actually affect the way that the heating works because it has to go around it. From what
All right, before I wrap this up, I want to give a special shout out to the real star of this show. Joshua, I could not have done this without you. You are the man. So thank you. Now, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that like button. I have got some great videos coming up, including me powder coating a Gaja classic. So stay tuned. And I'm going to leave you with the amazing Joshua pulling a shot on his brand new machine. Enjoy. So we put it right in the middle so that it's halfway over it.
Okay, I see.
Okay? And then you start it. Purge it. And then people do it after they do the swirl to remix. Then you just swirl it a bit, and then when you get to about there,
Sure.
then you start your little design.
Oh, nice.
Cute. Thank you.
You ready to try it, Grace?
Okay, you can.
I can try.
All right, so what are your thoughts on that?
It's delicious.
Yeah, that's
It's like if I had drank this at a coffee shop, I'd come back.